Thank you, Chazan. Please be seated as we prepare to hear the words prepared by our congregant, Yosef Dlugacz.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Good morning. Boker Tov. My name is Yosef Dlugacz. I'm standing for the second time in front of a congregation. The first time I was 13. The synagogue was packed, quiet, all waited with great expectation. My father stood behind me, my mother and my sister in the women's section. I said the first part of the blessing and no other words came out. Today I was asked to give a Dvar Torah on the holiest day of the year. The Torah calls Yom Kippur a Shabbat Shabbaton. It is of supreme holiness. Not an easy task for a lay person. It is a day that all Jews of all walks of life tend to attend. Days of awe, Yamim Noraim. Yom Kippur is our annual reckoning with mortality. On Rosh Hashanah, it is written, and on Yom Kippur, it is sealed, who will live and who will die. This day brings us together to do what? Ask for forgiveness, talk to God, be with Jews to get a sense of comfort in the face of anti-Semitism. Rabbi Sachs points out that at the heart of the idea of Kol Israel, Chaverim Ze Bazeh, is that all Jews are responsible for one another. As Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai puts it, when one Jew is injured, all Jews feel the pain. My father was born and raised in Skalat, a shtetl in Ukraine in which Jews lived for hundreds of years. 3 weeks after Rosh Hashanah, in October 1942, in a third major roundup called the Wild Auction, over 3,000 Jews, including my entire family, were murdered. By 1943, there were no more Jews. Rosalie Silberman Abela, a former justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, wrote in the Washington Post weekly, "We need the rule of justice, not just the rule of law. Because we live in a mean-spirited world, in a climate polluted by anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination generally. We need to put justice back in charge, and to do that, we need compassion. We have a duty to wear our identities with pride." No wonder I liked her opinion. She was born in 1946 in a displaced person camp in Germany. I was born in a detention camp in Cyprus in 1947. I always wanted to know how my father could observe Yom Kippur after his experience in the Holocaust. My father prepares very carefully for Yom Kippur. He sat the whole day in synagogue praying and studying. The day was very solemn, quiet under the strong sun. In between, he inhaled snuff. At the end, a piece of honey cake with a very hot tea. "Abba, why?" He looked at me in puzzlement. "What do you mean? How can you fast and pray when God abandoned you during the Holocaust? No one was left but you." When I asked, he answered, "It is you and your sister. You are here, the next generation. Between the two of us, we have 11 grandchildren. God did not let a total destruction to take place. In fact, the state of Israel was created by Holocaust survivors who fought in 47-48. My father fought with Rabin in Latrun, and then again in 56, and I in 67. Today is the anniversary of Yom Kippur War. If you can, please see the movie Golda. It's on television. We didn't carry the Holy Ark to battle as Joshua did. Instead, we carried the Holocaust, the memory of the holy days, the memory of 3,000 years of being Jews in the face of total destruction. Rabbi Sachs wrote that in this span of time, our library of sacred texts were created. Tanakh, Mishnah, Gemara, Midrash, codes and commentaries. It is so vast that no lifetime is long enough to master it. We are here today to face God, to ask for forgiveness. Our contract with God is to obey and listen, as we did in the desert at Mount Sinai. This special relationship between God and us has kept us for centuries. This is what my father meant. God watched over us. Today, 7.1 million Jews live in Israel. The Dvar focus on change. The idea at the heart of tshuva is not just confession, not just saying El Chet Shechatanu. It is not just remorse, Ashamnu. It is determination to change. The decision that I'm going to learn from my mistakes, that I'm going to act differently in the future, that I determined to become a different kind of a person. We see in the Torah and the Tanakh a process in which people changed. On a personal level, I changed since I retired. The voluntary morning minyan, led by Norman Doctor, changed my life. I cannot be without Norman. I attach myself to a special group of people who care, creative and supportive. We learned to pray, interpret the passages from the Torah. Barbara Kaplan, the lead person to give Dvar Torah. We also like to gossip over coffee and leftover cake that Norman sets up. I learned to lead services, sing, and be a gabbai on Monday and Thursdays. Why am I telling you about the morning minyan? Because 10 to 15 people with different background, different attitudes, different age come together to share a belief, to share a history, not only to say Kaddish. According to Rabbi Sachs, tshuva itself is premised on the proposition that we can change. On Yom Kippur, we ask ourselves where we have gone wrong, where we have failed. Then we tell ourselves the answers. That is when we need the courage to change. The failure of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, the destruction of the temple, and no functioning priesthood, the Jews entered their longest exile. How could Jews mend their relationship with God? It was then that the great revolution took place in Jewish history, theology. The sages came to the conclusion that in the absence of the high priest, each Jew could turn directly to God. Holiness was democratized. Every place where Jews gathered to pray was like a fragment of the temple in Jerusalem. Every prayer said from the heart was like a sacrifice. Each Jew on this day of days was like a priest. It was a stunning transformation. From the first century onward, Jews became the most faithful people in history, the only people to retain their religious identity for 2 millennia, as a displaced minority. As our Rabbi Schlesinger wrote in a call, let us approach prayer as a tool for self-discovery and personal growth. Thank you. I wish all of you Gmar Chatima Tova. Thank you.